All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting daily vlog. This is Daily Vlog 2025, number 143. Thank you, phone. Sorry, my phone chirped at me in the middle of my intro. So, today, I because my brain doesn't like me watching new things, I decided to watch an old thing for like the 400th time. Doing another watch through of Firefly because it's an amazing show. And as I was watching the first episode, I realized the first episode is an absolutely perfect example of an introductory adventure for a tabletop RPG. Now, let me explain. Um, because Daggerheart is a thing right now, and there's a lot of people that are probably going to be playing or running their very first adventure in this particular TTRPG. I've been thinking about what makes a good intro adventure. If anyone is unaware, I cut my teeth as a GM and as a tabletop RPG person, just in general, running games at friendly local game stores and uh, conventions. And my particular specialty was running introduction tables. At most of the places where I ran games, I was the person that was like, "Oh, you've never played before? You're at my table." Um, and a lot of that has to do with the whole trainer Jody thing. The trainer has nothing to do with Pokemon. It is because I am a trainer, at least I was. When I was still able to work, that was one of the things that I did. Even before I got into management, is I would help train people in sales and other things like that. And then once I got into management, it was kind of my primary focus. I would develop training plans and implement them to make changes throughout stores and stuff, and I was real good at it. So, one of the things that I kind of focus on in general is the idea of a good introductory adventure, because there is a large difference between like just running a tabletop RPG and what makes a good session versus what makes a good first session. Um, and there's a number of things that really have to occur in a first session that if they happened in every single session, it would probably get really really boring and formulaic. Uh, but for a first session, this is both a first session for people that have never played a TTRPG before and a first session for a new system that you haven't played before. And so I'm watching Firefly and I realize that the Firefly premiere, um, which, if anyone was around when Firefly originally aired, was not the first episode of Firefly that aired. Fox made the brilliant decision that they didn't like just kind of how dark the first episode was, so they decided to air the episodes out of order. And the first episode that actually aired was the second episode, The Train Job. And they basically used the first episode as more of like a flashback episode, despite the fact that there is a flashback episode. I think it's episode 8, where it shows where each member of the crew came from, aside from River Simon and Shepherd Book, because we meet them in the first episode. So anyway, so I'm watching this, and as I'm watching it, and I'm also gearing up to run a possible Daggerheart Giga game very, very soon, and other stuff like that. So I'm kind of brushing up on my training mindset, and so I'm watching this, and I'm like, oh my god, this is a perfect intro tabletop RPG. Like, it really, really is. Because it does a number of things just exceptionally well. So what I figured I'd do for today's video is actually just break down the premiere episode of Firefly and talk about the parts of it that make for a perfect introductory tabletop RPG. So, the first thing that has to happen for an introductory tabletop RPG, you need to have a number of different pieces. First, you have to explain how roles work, or how roles in this system work. And the introduction to or the premiere episode of Firefly has a brilliant way to do this. The episode starts off in the middle of a battle to kind of explain where Mal and Zoe come from, and the whole idea of the Independence versus versus the Alliance. I would not put that in as something where you can start playing. That would be something that I would leave to... That's basically referencing a backstory. And there's a lot of reasons why, but the biggest one is just there's too much stuff going on there for it to be an effective method of teaching players how to play. Then after that's done, we get a credits roll, and then immediately we are in space, and it looks like they're trying to break into a hold or something like that. We get introduced to Zoe, Mal, and Jane. And then shortly after that, we get introduced to Wash and Kaylee. And that's the base crew of Serenity, which is the ship that they're on. So this first part is a useful part, because as soon as all the characters are established, and I'll talk about that aspect in a second here when we get to the next part of a good thing in a TTRPG. They see an Alliance cruiser coming over, and what they're doing at that particular point is conducting an illegal salvage. So they don't want to get caught. Everything goes dark. The Alliance do eventually find them, and the crew has to... what the crew decides to do is, okay, we're going to double time, move these crates back to the ship, and then we're going to get out as quickly as possible. If we translate this to a tabletop RPG, you establish the setting, and you get to start, in media res, basically in the middle of the action. And so when the players sit down at the table, first of all, you're not going to have all the players' characters there yet. There's still 3 more characters to introduce later. So we're starting with a smaller subset of characters, which tends to be very, very useful if you're playing with a large table, to allow some of the characters to start to get acclimated to the game and not overwhelm everyone trying to figure out who is what and who is where, who is why. And the camera kind of establishes shots for all the 3 of them. So we kind of get introduced to the characters, and then immediately they're in the middle of doing something, which is roles. You need to teach your players, first of all, how roles work, and second of all, when they're going to be using them, and the various different ways to do that. So you introduce the characters and go, okay, your 3 of you are in space. You've come to open up this derelict to get some goods off it. That's what you've been hired to do. You have a particular tool that will let you get into it. And you need to be real careful because what you're doing is not quite legal. The other 2 of you, the pilot, you are still on the ship in case something happens. And the engineer, you're there as well to be able to kind of work with the pilot in case something needs to happen. So, as you guys are doing this, what would you like to do? Oh, well, Mal comes up and is like, okay, well, I want to open it up. Okay, Well, you get the tool. You guys call it the sticky. It's basically kind of a heat-based gel that when it gets hot, kind of like thermite, it burns real quick in a very particular direction. So you're able to put that on, and I'm not going to make you roll for that. It just kind of happens because that's what the device is designed to do. Boom, opens up full pressure. That means the goods in there probably intact. All right, let's start opening this up. As you open it up, you see the 3 crates that you've been told that you need to get. Unfortunately, hey Wash, why don't you tell me what you're doing right now? Well, because I am a very dedicated crew member, while the rest of the crew is out there doing hard work, I've taken out my toy dinosaurs and I'm running a little scenario on the control panel talking about how these dinosaurs have found a very fertile land and they're going to call it this land. Ha! It's really funny, Wash. Well, what I'd like you to do, go ahead and roll me a perception check or whatever the awareness skill is in this game. I roll it. Oh, wow. I roll high. Okay. You realize that on your monitors you're seeing something, some movement. And then suddenly, beep, 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 beep. Proximity alarms start going up. You go over to your monitor and you can see an Alliance battle cruiser coming right at you. What would you like to do? I'm gonna tell the crew they're out in the middle of space. There's nothing they can do. Okay, so you get on there and go, hey, Alliance battle cruiser on the way. What should I do, Captain? All right, Mal, you've just been told there's a battle cruiser. What do you want to do? Well, the thing's open already, right? Yeah. Well, do they know that we're here? Okay, Wash. Why don't you roll me a control check? Whatever check we decide to use to have you, check to see if you think that they've seen you. Okay. I don't think they've seen it just yet. Okay, that's what you've been told. Mal, what do you want to do? Do you want to run? Do you want to hide? He's like, okay, turn everything off. Make us as quiet as you possibly can. Okay, Kaylee, in order to do that, you're going to have to shut down the engine and quite a few other pieces, and you're going to have to do it fast. So I'm going to have you roll me your technical skill. Oh, yeah, sure. Every single one of these characters has a different thing that they're doing. And each one is getting introduced to how their particular class and role is going to be doing checks. When they are eventually discovered, Mal gets to make the decision. Okay, Mal, you're the captain. What do you want to do? Do you want to abandon it and run? Do you want to try and take the stuff in? That is going to be more difficult. What are you thinking? We're going to move it in. We're going to move it in double time. We're going to do this as fast as physically possible. Okay, then I need athletics checks or spacewalk checks or whatever we're going to use for that. Everybody gets their own chance to try something out. So we start off by going, hey, these are how roles work and this is how our skill system works. It works absolutely beautifully. And then they get back on the ship, and we're going to allow both Kaylee and Wash to do some stuff too. Wash gets to do some fancy flying and do stuff. Kaylee gets to do all of her tech stuff to make sure that things are back online, because you just turned everything off, and now you got to turn everything back on and make sure everything's working. So everybody has kind of been introduced to the things that they do best, aside from possibly Jane, because Jane really has just been kind of a passenger on all of this. We will deal with Jane in a second here. So move forward a little bit, we get to Persephone. And Persephone introduces our first social encounter or role-playing encounter, depending on what you how you want to define it. Mal has to go and try to convince Badger that he should get paid for what he just did. Sorry. And that is going to be Zoe, Mal, and Jane. And this is where Jane gets to start leaning into his character. Because while Mal is trying to do the negotiations and everything, Jane is starting to get aggressive. And Jane is getting to use the skills that he's best with, which are things like intimidation and killing things. Jane is your standard barbarian style character. So he intimidates stuff. He's pretty strong and he likes violence. And so in the middle of this, Jane's like, this is really pissing me off. I want, Captain's acting like a little puddle of piss here. I want to show them that I'm not someone to be messed around with. What do I do? Well, Jane, you can roll an intimidation check to try and pull your gun and see that. And he rolls it, and he fails. And so, as you're attempting to kind of pull out your weapon and threaten them with it, you suddenly hear, and you see every other person in the room has pulled out a weapon and has them all trained on you. What do you want to do? I'm going to slowly put my revolver back into its holster. All right, that's a good thing. Well, Mal, it's up to you. Are you going to be able to convince him? The rolls don't go with Mal. Okay. Badger has said that he's not going to buy the goods. You now have 3 crates worth of stolen Alliance good on a planet with an Alliance presence, and your current trajectory is to take you to a world that is much closer to the core and therefore also swarming with Alliance troops. What do you want to do? Oh, I don't know. Well, now we shift over to Kaylee on the ship. And Kaylee has been given the job of getting passengers. And some of those passengers are going to be players. At least one of those passengers is going to be an NPC. So Kaylee gets to play the salesman there. And she gets to kind of lean into the kind of friendliness and happiness that is built into her character. And she gets to make a bunch of different checks. We also get introduced to a new player character, Shepherd Book. And Shepherd Book gets to come in and he gets to introduce himself, and he gets to have some role-play encounters with another guy that comes in and says, hey, Grandpa, you want to come with me? Ship's great. And his response, because this player is really, really quick, goes, I never married. And the NPC goes, what? I'm not a grandpa. And he walks on. So now we've had a fun way to introduce one of the characters. The other characters have already had their chance to kind of been introduced and get their own little mini, hey, these are the cool things that I can do. Now we're allowing Shepherd Book to come in and get introduced. And then there's a little role play scene between Zoe, Mal, and Jane as they're coming back to the ship, and Jane gets to lean significantly more into his character. He even gets to make a joke. Hey, I didn't sign up to this crew for nothing. I get a share of this job. Let's figure out what a share of nothing is. Nothing times nothing, carry the nothing. Gets to have fun, and Mal starts trying to come up with something to happen. And as they get to the ship, Kaylee has finished all of her roleplay encounters, and she gets to introduce another new player character in Simon Tam. And Simon gets to go, hi, Captain, and he gets to be very standoffish and secretive because he has his own little secret. And gets to do a little bit of roleplay with everybody else. Then Mal gets to address the crew and everything, go, hey, we got to stop off at this other place after having some sort of meeting with somebody to go, I guess we're going to sell it to, I can't remember the character's name anymore because my brain doesn't allow me to remember proper nouns, and she doesn't show up for the rest of the series. Patience, that's her name, Patience. We're going to sell it to Patience. So now we have almost all the characters introduced, but we haven't had a combat encounter. That's another really, really important aspect of the game. So first things first, you have to introduce how roles work, introduce the skill system. Second of all, you should have some sort of role-playing encounter. We have quite a few different ones for different characters. Everybody gets their own little role-play encounter. Third, you need to be able to introduce the characters, and that's technically a first thing. But the way that they do it here is so well done because it doesn't overwhelm you with all the characters all at once. They take a small subgroup of the characters that already have connections, and then the characters that don't currently have connections with the core group are introduced one by one by one. So really, really effective way to do that. And when it's done well, a lot of GMs will feel really scared about starting with like a smaller group of players and then slowly introducing the rest. Because like, well, then those people, they're just sitting there doing nothing. No, they're enjoying the rest of the story that's being told in front of them. And if you're doing a good job as a GM and the players are doing a good job as the players, they're going to enjoy seeing that and kind of anticipating when they get to show up. It's a regular thing that I do in my tabletop RPGs is I will always start at the beginning of a campaign or something like that with one or two characters going, hey, we're going to start with you, then we're slowly going to expand to the full cast. So the one thing that we haven't had is a combat encounter, and that comes pretty quickly. Some stuff is happening. The Wash character, who hasn't had a ton to do thus far, while they're piloting and while things are going on, you can just randomly go, by the way, Wash, why don't you give me a perception check or whatever check we've decided we're going to use. And he rolls pretty well. Oh, you just noticed that someone is logged into the Cortex and has hailed the nearest Alliance cruiser. What do you want to do? Shoot, is there a way that I can stop them or stop the... Absolutely, make a tech control check. He rolls okay. It's not a super high roll, but it's not a low roll. And so you tell him, well, you stopped it. You're not 100% sure how much information was shared. It could have been just your position. It could have been literally everything. You don't quite know. You weren't quite fast enough to see what it was. What do you want to do? Well, I'm going to call a captain here and Zoe, and we're going to figure out what in the hell's going on. So that's what you do. You inform Mal and Zoe, and Mal goes down to the cargo deck and sees that there's somebody where they're not supposed to. Simon. Now, Simon has had his own thing that he's doing. Simon knows that he has to regularly check on his package because there's things that can change in it. And so you probably mentioned to Simon in a whisper, by the way, you need to check on this package every hour and a half, every 2 hours. Give them some reason why they're going to have to go in and do something. And this particular character is not built for stealth. But they had to do it, and they're like, well, I'm just going to wait for people to not be there, and I'm going to sneak out. Okay, you do that. You make it there. Captain finds you, and the captain decides, okay, I'm done with this. I'm going to attack him because he's threatening my crew. Now we get a little bit of a combat encounter. And once it starts, Mal pulls his gun, gets ready to threaten with it, and then he hears click, click, and Shepherd Book comes out and goes, Captain, I think you got the wrong man. And you can see the NPC that came along seems to be the person that did it. Well, now we have a bit of a standoff. And everything's going on, and the character, or the player playing Kaylee goes, well, all this stuff is going on in the cargo hold, and I'm not generally that far away, so I'm going to just come in and see what's going on. Because, again, the Kaylee character is very persuasive, very bubbly and things. She thinks that she can de-escalate the situation. And so Kaylee comes in, and I go, okay, in my table, I would say choose even or odd. That's what I do when I don't have a particular role I want anyone to make, but I want some level of randomness in there. So they'll choose even or odd. I roll a d20. If it's an even number, if it matches the number that they chose, then something positive happens. If it doesn't match the number that they chose, something negative happens. Well, she comes in, she goes odd, and I roll a 2. I go, okay, well, you came in and you scared him. And so he's just going to immediately turn and fire at the first thing that he sees. Nat 20. He crit you, Kaylee. Get a shot to the stomach. As soon as that happens, Shepherd Book goes, I'm stopping this right now. I have martial arts skills because Shepherd Book is a monk. So he goes, I want to disarm him and knock him out. Okay, you're going to have to roll pretty high to do that. Oh, well, I have this special monk thing that lets me move really fast. Okay, so go ahead and make your roll. You 100% do it. He's out like a light. So now we've had this kind of pseudo combat encounter where people have been able to do attack rolls and stuff like that, but it hasn't been super bad. And now we get to another role playing encounter. It's entirely the player characters. There's no NPCs. They get to kind of argue with what's going on, and they decide to run, which is going to involve Wash getting to do more of his piloty stuff. Simon actually gets a chance to use his medical skills and the things like that. So again, everybody is getting a chance to use the thing that they are best at. And then finally, we get a revelation of the final piece of cargo where River comes out. And for the first episode, River is kind of a prop more than anything else. So it could very much be argued that River is an NPC at this particular point. They could be a player character, but they don't really get a whole lot to do in the first episode. They're in the container, and then they're asleep in the sick bay. It could also be River is a player character that wasn't able to show up to the first session. So they start off as an NPC and eventually become a player. So all that stuff happens. And now, again, Jane hasn't been able to do a ton of stuff yet. He missed the fight. So now Mal goes to him and goes, hey, I need you to interrogate this guy, find out exactly what they know. Now, Jane gets to lean into the stuff that he's good at. He gets to be intimidating. He gets to be very aggressive. He gets to use a knife. But unfortunately for Jane, when he first comes in and he rolls his first intimidation check, he rolls a nat 20 and he kind of flusters this guy. So when he attempts to lie to Jane, he crit fails. And Jane instantly knows, yeah, this guy's talking out his ass. They don't know a damn thing. Jane's like, darn it! Want to get me an ear. You're an officer of the law. Didn't they teach you how to lie? Okay, apparently I underestimated you. I wish I could say the same. I'm all sorts of depressed now. And then the NPC makes him an offer. Hey, betray the captain. You'll make a lot of money, which feeds into one of the main motivators for Jane. The NPC is tugging at the particular strings that this player character has put into their backstory. This is a really, really big deal for me. And I'm very, very money motivated. And so now we have this kind of little mutiny idea going on. Then, as we're going, the Reavers come in. And we get to have an entirely different situation of there's nothing that they can do here. This is just a dangerous situation that if something goes wrong, bad things are about to happen. It could be a very, very large combat encounter, but you make sure that the players are aware if this turns into a combat encounter, there is very little chance that they're going to win this combat encounter. The Reaver ship itself is significantly larger than them. The crew is probably in the dozens at least. And so they'd be outnumbered 2, 3, maybe even 5 to 1. And Reavers are tough to take on their own. When they're swarming like that, there's lots of bad things that can happen. And there's other things. They might just, rip the ship apart. They have that ability as well. And so now you get this super tense moment, and you can go to each player character and go, well, what are you doing right now? And Inara, who we haven't really talked about much here, other than a few Barry interactions. Inara can kind of deal with stuff. She is another character that doesn't really get to shine very much until at least the second episode. And so you go around each character. Well, what are you doing right now? Well, I'm, you go to Kayla. What are you doing? Well, I'm going to be in the engine room in case something goes wrong. I'm going to make sure that Wash has all the power that he needs. And then, okay, Wash, what are you doing? Well, I'm at the helm. And I'm going to be ready to go. And I'm going to be watching the ship specifically to be able to tell, because my knowledge of ships is pretty good, right? Absolutely. Well, I'd like to roll a knowledge check to see if I can tell which parts of the ship are going to be most dangerous in case I have to get out of here. Okay, roll a check. Rolled high. Well, you know that magnetic grappler there, if they get you that, you're humped. So, and then Mal and Zoe, what are you guys doing? Well, Zoe, I'm going to be next to my man. I'm going to be in the cabin there. It also means that I'll be one of the first people to know when things are going wrong. And Mal, where are you going to be? I'm going to be on the bridge as well. Again, I want to know what's going on. And so everybody can kind of prepare for something, and you can roll behind the GM screen to see what exactly goes on. The Reavers leave them alone. They eventually get to Persephone, and now we have a combination role-playing and combat and counter. Jane gets to go off and do his commando thing and gets access to a sniper rifle. Zoe and Mal are down there. The negotiations go poorly. Some bad rolls happen, and then a fight breaks out. We get actual combat. Now, not everybody in the crew is there because not everybody in the crew is combat ready. But we get to introduce the combat thing, and while that's going on, the rest of the crew can be doing other things. While that's going on, we have the NPC sneaking out, going to kidnap River. You get a really cool kind of pseudo-combat encounter with Simon and the now kidnapper, dealing with that. And there's lots of role-play stuff that can go on there. There's a little encounter between Book and the lawman that ends up with Shepherd Book rolling pretty bad and being rendered unconscious. And then at the very end, we again get a chance for Wash and Kaylee to use their cool class abilities. Wash gets to do a cool pilot maneuver. Kaylee gets to mess with stuff in engineering to make sure the pilot maneuver goes along. And both Jane and Book get to help them out because Kaylee is still injured. And so Jane gets to kind of play into his, oh, I'm stupid. And Book gets to kind of show more things that he's much more than what people think he is. And that's how the episode ends. They're able to pull off their maneuver through some great rolls and make it out. So yeah, like I said, it's an absolutely brilliant way to run an introductory adventure because everybody gets a chance to feel special in it. Aside from, like I said, Inara and River are kind of secondary characters at this point. There's a great scene between Inara and Book at the very end where Inara gets a chance. The kind of iconography of the scene and how it's shot is really, really brilliant because Inara is effectively the secular character, whereas Book is the religious character, and yet Book is having kind of a crisis of faith. And he's on his knees because Inara is kind of tending to the wound he got after he was knocked out. And so Inara is actually counseling Book. And there's this brilliant shot where you see Book on his knees and Inara kind of comforting him in the same way that you might see a religious figure kind of comforting a member of his flock. And so you have the secular person taking the religious figure's place, and the religious figure's the religious character taking the kind of subservient place. It's a really cool dichotomy, but those two characters maybe not utilized quite as much as they could be, and it's a really large cast. It's an ensemble cast. In general, most games are only going to have 4 to 5 people, the base crew. This one has 7 player characters once you introduce Book and Simon, and then 2 other characters that might be player characters later, but right now they're being introduced as NPCs because you don't want to have 9 players all introduced at the exact same time. It's just a little bit overwhelming. But yeah, the thing does everything well. It introduces all the characters. It gets every character a chance to do the things that they're best at. I didn't talk about Zoe a whole lot. Not because she's not kind of an integral character, but her kind of character traits is I support the captain. And so she does that constantly, and she does it in a lot of different ways. It's just not quite as it doesn't have as big an effect on the overall plot. But she's still an absolutely essential character, and she has some great role play with Wash and great role play with the captain and stuff like that. But yeah, you start off, you give brief introductions of each character, you let them all do something that they're really good at. You introduce the characters slowly, you introduce them to how roles work and what kind of roles they can make. You give them a role-playing encounter that they can succeed or fail at. You know, the Badger, a lot of times, introductory role-play encounters, a lot of GMs will make them easy enough that there's really very little chance that they could fail at it. And then they won't plan for what happens if they fail. You still could have had a very interesting story without them having to go to the other planet that Patience is from. I can't remember the name of the planet now. And they'd already set up the subplot with the lawman and having to deal with the Alliance. By losing to Badger, they introduced the Patience to the thing and had to kind of deal with that. But you had a role-playing encounter that not only could they fail, they did fail, and the story kept on moving. They have two different combat encounters that are not super crazy as far as combat is concerned. And they are stacked a little bit more in the player's favor. With the first one, there being only one enemy, and the entire crew is there, and the only reason that the enemy really isn't immediately taken out is he's able to get the drop on them. And then a second combat encounter with Jane having the sniper post and being able to kind of instigate the combat itself. You basically give the players not only a free surprise round, but a huge advantage for having a sniper that can't actually be targeted, but can target any character on the battlefield. So you introduce combat in a situation where the deck is stacked a little bit more in their favor to allow them to get used to the combat rules, and then at the end they get the thing that they want and they continue on. You have another episode or another session. It really is a brilliant way to do it. It's one of the reasons why I like the fact that Daggerheart and quite a few different TTRPGs that have been coming out recently tend to use language that is reminiscent of like entertainment writing, like TV shows where you go, this is an episode, this is a season, things like that. They do that in Avatar Legends because it's based on a television show. This one talks about story beats and the 3-act structure and stuff like that. All stuff that would be very familiar with anyone that's worked in entertainment, whether we're talking about theater, whether we're talking about TV, movies, anything like that. You would be familiar with that because you have to understand that. Like, just because I was an actor and I didn't do any writing doesn't mean that I wasn't taught and didn't learn about, you know, the various act structures and things like that, because understanding my character's growth would require me understanding the story structures that help me to get through that growth. So yeah, you can take inspiration from just about anything. Interested to hear from you guys. First of all, how many Firefly fans do I have there? You can't stop the signal. Woohoo. Second of all, what do you guys think about the idea that the first episode of Firefly gives a really good template for how to run an introductory TTRPG adventure? Let me know your comments down below. Otherwise, again, it's going to be all for me today. I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.